In today's lesson, we're going to take a look at your G, C and C Cadd9 chords. So we're already getting into chords with funny names, but it's nothing to worry about. They're still super simple to play on guitar. Remember, you can download all the chord diagrams via Patreon through the link in the description, and all the lessons are nice and organised on my channel page, so be sure to subscribe if you want to follow along. So let's get stuck in and have a look at these chords. The first chord that we're going to take a look at today is the G chord. Now G is another one of them chords where you've got a couple of options as to how you play it, so I'll show you all the options and you can decide what works best for you. So the first option for G is going to involve all 4 fingers on your left hand. You're going to start with second finger, playing the 3rd fret of the bottom string. First finger, playing 2nd fret of the A string. You're going to have the open D string, open G string. 3rd finger is going to play 3rd fret B, and little finger is going to play 3rd fret high E. So one note at a time, it should sound like this. And all together, it's a nice big sounding G chord. Things that tend to go wrong in this chord is the first 2 fingers lying down too flat and muting the strings physically below them, or sometimes it's the 3rd and 4th finger not pressing down hard enough. So sometimes with G, when students are first giving it a go, I'll find that they're either just getting the bottom of the chord like this, and the brightness is missing because the top 2 strings aren't pressed properly, or sometimes they're just getting the top half of the chord. It sounds a little bit whiny because you're missing the low notes. What you're listening for is all 6 strings ringing out together, and that's how you get that nice full sounding G chord. So that first version of G chord is more like what you would play if you were playing something like a ballad or a song on a clean electric guitar or an acoustic guitar. This second version of G is more like what you would play if you were playing rock guitar and you had some distortion on. The reason being that it kind of cleans up the sound a bit and stops it sounding all muddy when you're in a rock context. So for this one, we're going to start with that first full version of G with all 4 fingers on, and really simple, all you're going to do is take the first finger off. Now at the moment, I've got this so that the 2nd finger is playing the bottom string and it's leaving the A string open, because we previously wanted to hear that string in the other version of the G chord, but in this one you purposefully want to lie the 2nd finger down a little bit so that it mutes that A string. Okay, so 2nd finger is playing the bottom string, but muting the A string. And all the other strings are just unaffected from where they were before. So it's just like the first G chord, but without the A string, and it essentially just means it cleans up the sound when you put a bit of distortion on. And the third version of G isn't really one that I'd recommend, but it is one that crops up from time to time. It's normally the one that the books and online tuition tends to teach you, so I'll show it you anyway, just so that you're not confused if you see it, but it tends to not be the one that you see actual guitar players using. So this version of G chord is still going to have the 2nd finger on the bottom string and the 1st finger on the A string in 3rd and 2nd fret, and this time you're going to do a stretch and put the 3rd finger just on the top string. So in the previous versions of G, 3rd finger was on the B string, like this, try and show you a little bit better angle, but now 3rd finger is going to be on the top string. It creates quite a big gap between your 2nd and 3rd fingers, which isn't super comfortable, and I actually don't think it sounds as good as the other G chords. If I play it for you. Technically it sounds fine, but I just feel like the overall sound of it is not quite as strong as the other G chords, but you might find some context where you end up using it, so worth knowing about anyway. The next chord we're going to take a look at is C chord, and there tends to be only one way that most people play an open C chord, so you don't have to worry about figuring out different options. So for C chord, we're going to start with our 1st finger in the 1st fret of the B string. 2nd finger is going to go into 2nd fret of the D string, and 3rd finger is going to sit on 3rd fret of the A string, and we don't want to hear anything on the low E string, so that's why my thumb has popped over the top to mute that string. The G string and the high E string are both left open, so if I play the notes one at a time, it should sound like this. And the full chord The thing that tends to go wrong with this chord at first is the angle of the fingers. So you can see that my fingers have got quite an angle in them. What tends to happen is that people try and approach the guitar too perpendicular and the fingers end up being pried apart like this, which isn't really comfortable and isn't really making the shape of your hand work with the guitar. Your fingers don't necessarily like being pried apart from left to right, but they don't mind stretching over the top of each other. So that's the first thing I would think about when attempting a C chord. The second thing is just the unwanted muting of strings. And this is a really tough chord to get that right, probably because of the angle of the hand, all the fingers feel like they want to lie down and touch the next string. So you've just got to experiment, find a way where you can get enough of an arch in each finger so that it's not touching any other strings. You might want to start with thumb on the back first, just until you can get each note ringing out, and then when it's comfortable and consistent, bring the thumb over and throw in that thumb muting. And the final chord for today is going to be the C add 9 chord. So it sounds fancy and like it might be a little bit difficult, but it's super simple and it sounds really great on guitar. All we're going to do is start with that initial G chord that we had, so all 4 fingers on, first and second finger on the bottom 2 strings, and quite simply all you're going to do is move those bottom 2 fingers up 1 string. So second finger is going to end up on 3rd fret A string, first finger is going to end up on 2nd fret D string, and that gives us our C add 9 chord. You only want to hear the top 5 strings, so if I play them one at a time, they should sound like this. And you can see that the thumb has came over the top to mute the bottom string, but you could also touch the bottom string with the tip of your second finger and achieve the muting that way, whatever is most comfortable for you. In terms of actually playing the chord, it tends to present the same challenges that you have in a G chord, so fingers 1 and 2 tend to want to lie down a little bit too much and touch the next strings, and then the back 2 fingers sometimes just don't press down hard enough on the top strings, so just make sure that you're getting all your strings ringing out and a nice full-bodied chord. For anyone interested in what their whole add 9 thing is all about, it just means you're adding the 9th note of the scale to the chord. So if I play the C scale for you, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and that is the note that we're adding in to get our add 9 chord. So the next thing you want to think about is changing between the chords, and by far and away the easiest change is the G to the C add 9, because they're basically the same shape and all you've got to worry about is them bottom 2 fingers. So just have a play around, maybe try and throw in a little bit of strumming, just moving cleanly between these 2 chords. Try and get the thumb working as well, so that you're not getting that E string ringing out in your C add 9 chord. If you put in a little bit of strumming, any classic rock fans might be recognising this already. It's a really easy change to just get it sounding straight away like a popular song. The G to the C chord is a much more difficult change. If you watch me do it, you can see that all the fingers have got to come off and start moving towards that next chord. There's not really anything in common finger-wise between these 2 chords. So the only option is to take all the fingers off, start making the shape of the chord in the air, and then throw them all down. You might find at first that you start doing 1 finger at a time. That's okay, just while you're getting used to it. But if you want to get your changes fast enough to actually put into a song and into a strumming pattern, all the fingers have got to move together, so that should be your goal. A good way to practice this would be to use the metronome app on your phone. Just set it away at a comfortable tempo and try and do 4 beats on 1 chord, then 4 on another. So you might have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then as you get used to it, you can gradually increase the speed, which will speed up your chord changes. And for the final part of this lesson, I just want to talk a little bit about the root notes, because as I mentioned in the last lesson, you want to start learning these as you go, and then you don't have to put in as much work later, because you'll already know where a bunch of the root notes are from your initial chords. So if we take a look at the G chord, the lowest note that we're hearing in this chord is the second finger playing the 3rd fret on the bottom string. And that means that that is the note G, because that is the root of our G chord. So 3rd fret, bottom string, G note. If we take a look at the C chord, remember the thumb is muting the bottom string, so the lowest note we're actually hearing is the 3rd fret of the A string, played by the 3rd finger, so that is the note C. So 3rd fret A string, C note, and you can see that if I play my Cadd9, even though that note is being played with a different finger, it still makes the same sound, and it's still the root of a type of C chord, even though it's an add9, so it's still our C root note. So now you have all the chords that you need to learn your first bunch of songs as a beginner guitar player. Remember, you can download all the chord diagrams from my Patreon page, and all the lessons are nice and organised on my channel, so be sure to subscribe if you want to follow along. In the next lesson, we're going to look at some ways to embellish these chords that you've learned to help you get a bit more of a professional guitar sound, so I'll see you in that one.